In 1995, director Tony Scott teamed up with Denzel Washington for the movie Crimson Tide. This summer, they are back with another film called Man on Fire. It tells the story of a former U.S. soldier hired as a bodyguard for a wealthy family in Mexico City. Joining me now is the film's director, Tony Scott, and Denzel Washington. I am pleased to have them here at this table. Denzel, back from a number of times he's been here before. Tony, it's good to see you. Great to have you here. Tell me about this movie. First of all, 1980?
Uh-huh. That was originally...
Milton calls you up and says, I got a movie and we got to make it, and or what?
I started working on Man on Fire in 1980,
Yeah.
and then I just completed a film called The Hunger, and people weren't too sure that I could handle this one. So
So you went out and did Top Gun?
So I did Top Gun, yeah. And then Arnold called me up like 2 years ago and said he was channel surfing at 3 a.m. and said I saw the old one about doing a new one.
This was with Glenn, Scott Glenn and others?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And so I said yes, because it's something that's always stayed with me.
What stayed with you?
It stayed with me because it's such a, for me, it was such a huge emotional roller coaster, and it touched so many human emotions in terms of love, fear, danger, violence. And it's very rare that you get one product or one script that has all this stuff in this one particular thing.
It's also about kidnapping, which is a little fact of life in the world today.
And kidnapping in 1980s, so the kidnap capital was Italy.
Yeah.
And
Aldo Moro and all of them, politicians and the like.
Yeah. And then, but today it's Latin America.
In Latin America.
It's Latin America, so I did my homework on Latin America.
You say that Mexico is in fact a central character in this movie.
Yes.
Because it's a place where kidnappings take place, or because of what?
No, I played it like as I would say, central third character in the piece, because it's such a powerful, it's such a beautiful city. It's the center of the city of the 16th century. Then you come out the barrios, which at times you could be in Morocco. And it's sexual, it's dark, it's dangerous, it's violent, it's beautiful. And it just felt like a good color to balance with everything else, or a good background for this movie.
You'd read the novel before, or seen the movie, the early movie?
I read the novel, hadn't seen the movies.
Yeah. Well, so did you like it? Was it appealing to you? Did you think anything other than just one more good read?
I read the script, and I knew that Tony was involved. And Tony and I had done Crimson Tide together, and it was a good experience and a successful film. So it made sense. I think I read the book. I may have read the book after I joined the squad. I don't even remember. Somewhere in there, I picked up the book. Yeah. No, it must have been early on. Yeah. It was early on.
You reread it.
I reread it.
And you kept coming with pages from the book. So
that's right.
It's a great line here.
Yeah, that's right. That book, I got the book all marked up. That's
now,
right.
you begin casting with him, don't you? Now you get Denzel.
Now we're second. Dakota Fanning.
Well, is that right?
Well, no.
You tell him. Wait, you tell him who Dakota Fanning is, because she steals this movie.
She steals.
Everybody agrees with that.
Yeah, she steals it.
I mean, the great
I don't
Denzel.
agree. Wait a minute. No,
the great Academy Award winner says Dakota steals the movie.
She stole I Am Sam from what I hear.
She said she did.
She's
Absolutely.
just brilliant. She's a brilliant young actress and a young woman, and she just has this soul. She, it's cliche to say an old soul, but she really does. I was saying earlier that I've done 2 films, both with Tony, interesting. I've done 2 films where I found myself watching the other actor, and one was with Gene Hackman in Crimson Tide, and this film, I'm just sitting there, not even in character. I'm like, who is she? Let me see your birth certificate.
How did you get this good?
How did you get this good so young? It's amazing.
This is 2 movies. The first movie is a man, what, trying to find his soul, or what?
That was a love story. Yeah, and a man in search for his soul. He's, got the Bible over here and the whiskey over there, and she's like an angel that comes into his life and turns him around.
Does what for him?
I think she gives him hope. She definitely helps him to smile and to believe that there's a reason to live. He talks about not being able to be near people too much or to talk to people. He's got all kinds of demons that we never find out about specifically, but she breaks through all of that, and she cracks that shell, and then she's snatched from him.
Mm-hmm. 9. How much of this was improvised?
I'd say 3/4. 3/4 of that. 3/4 of that scene began in the script. Off script.
Mm-hmm. Once she said you're smiling,
that was
all improvised.
Yeah. And
everything else
good.
Well, she's good, and it's like tennis. You hit the ball over the net, she'll hit it back.
Right.
With top spin. That's it.
You know?
Yeah. But and he said at the end when we did that particular take, that's one take. You all take one take. So I always use
So
two.
you
I used two cameras.
So you didn't do another take. You had it. You didn't need to
no,
do
I
it.
did. I think we did 4 takes and I'm insecure and paranoid.
You didn't know how good it was right then.
No, I did. I knew it was good, but
did
then
you use the first take, or did they get better and better?
this was, I think it was take 2, but I always used 2 cameras, like this dueling camera, so I was shooting Denzel at the same time as I was shooting her. And that's what, and people always go, it's ridiculous shooting 2 cameras or 4 cameras, but we were talking about it earlier, just saying that it enables you when you're doing a movie which is about emotion to capitalize, not having an actor to repeat the same, say, I've got the wide shot, I've got to come in for close-up coverage. If you're trying to get spontaneity from improvised performances, it's really hard to capture a second time round.
I heard you ask him as we were looking at the trailer. You said to him, how did you do that? Is that because you are now beginning to think about more and more about directing and thinking, I know you've directed because you were here talking about it in a memorable show we did, but you look now more acutely at directing.
I understand the process now. You know, it used to be you shoot a movie, see you later. I'll see you when we loop and see you at the premiere. Once you make a film, you've gone through the whole process of development of the script, of the performances, of the production, of pre-production, of post-production. So I know, in theory, what's supposed to happen. You know, at least I know what I wasn't able to accomplish. You know.
Yeah. You getting ready to direct again?
Yes.
You know what?
Next year. Well, I'm developing the material now and be ready for next year.
Are you going to act in it or just direct?
I hope not.
It's harder to act in
I'm
it.
just not interested in it. I don't want to do that.
Are you losing interest in acting, or just in terms of
I have
what
a
you
lot
want
of
to do in
interest
your
in
life
directing.
now?
I like directing a lot
Why?
because I like it.
It just appeals to your...
Yeah, well, in the 5th grade I took an art appreciation class. And I studied everybody from Rembrandt to Modigliani to whoever. And a lot of it stuck with me. And I've always been interested in art and painting. And I thought acting was the canvas. I found out it wasn't. It's some of the paint. It ain't even all the colors. It's definitely not the brush. It's the brush too, but it's still not the paint too.
Yeah.
And I like, as Tony is an artist. He's a painter, and cinematic and paint, and I just like that I just have progressed over the years to the point now where I have some ideas and I just want to express myself.
Do you know Eastwood well?
No, I don't know him well, but I sure look at what he's done, and even from a practical standpoint, business standpoint, if you will, I like what's happening. I'm looking at him and I'm going, hey, when I get there, he has another career.
Yeah. I mean, he just made as good a movies he's ever made at 70-something.
Exactly, so you get to stretch it out a little more.
When you worked with guys in the last 4 or 5 movies, Hackman, Washington, Pitt, Redford, and I'm missing some, people of that caliber, superstars, how do you handle them? Any difference? Do you look at each one and say, I gotta figure out?
Yes, I sit down, I spend time with them, make sure. And normally you've got to, before you sit down, you've got to have a deal on the table. Yeah, somehow I always manage to finagle my way around that.
Would you like me to leave the room for a second? No, go ahead.
And
So he can tell you the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, and I always believe.
Or he won't be working with you again.
No.
I always believe the strength in my casting
Yeah.
is that I try and cast who the guys are really at home with their feet up in front of the TV. And so I always look to find whether it's Denzel in this or Gene Hackman as a submarine commander. I felt that Gene was the character, and so I'll always try and channel my characters in the script back to who I believe the real guy is. So whether it's Robert Redford in Spy Game, or Brad, I always try and find, I always want them to be, I always try and cast it who I believe they really are at home.
Really? Cast them the way they really are at home.
That is my,
So Denzel that we see in this movie, there's something connected to Denzel at home.
Well, the connection with Denzel to this movie is I watched him on Crimson Tide talk about his kids. I never got to meet his kids then, but they're just little moments I remember standing on this gimbal. On the gimbal. And Denzel was talking about his son who's just started playing football and everything. And I saw a connection in terms of family connection. And so I don't know, you see, and it was funny because my casting session for Denzel was we met in a doctor's surgery. We hadn't seen each other since Crimson Tide, and he and I were in Dr. Mao's waiting for acupuncture in our broken knees, and we just sat and talked, and I was then in the process of prepping Man on Fire, and it's just that conversation with him.
And you had not chosen actor.
Yeah, I'd seen Dakota Fanning like a week or so before, and I Am Sam. And I'm sitting with Denzel. I didn't tell him what
No,
this
you didn't tell me at all.
And he was about.
He's working. I'm auditioning. I didn't even know it.
And you're having to put needles in your knee.
Yeah, I got the pin sticking out of my head, and I'm auditioning.
And so I got a free audition in a way. But we never talked about the movie. I just talked about family and talked about our lives.
And so you're
Crimson
auditioning
Tide.
at that time.
And so as soon as I walked out of there, I said, "This is the guy for this." And you know, everybody says to you, "Why do you cast this person? Why do you cast that person?" And there's one thing I always try and cast who I believe the people really are. And secondly, it's a gut response. It's like painting. That's my background, and the true response comes from here in the end. And the balance of Dakota and Denzel was such a brilliant love story. That's such an odd balance, but a great balance. And that's where I ended up.
Now, what's interesting here's a guy who is known as he makes action movies. That's what he's best known for, correct?
That's
Fair
what
enough.
he's best known.
Best known for. He's a painter. A sensitive soul here. I mean, there's a kind of.
The other thing, going back to an earlier question, what attracted me to this is the painter, the artist that I saw, because I saw oh shoot, I can't think of the name of it, The Hunger. Yeah. I saw The Hunger, and I really liked that movie. I just remember the curtains flopping and the style and the birds and David Bowie and all of that.
Deneuve.
And Deneuve and the
Susan.
two ladies and Susan Sarandon.
Right.
So I remember the movie. I never put two and two together. I never realized the same guy who did the Hunger did Top Gun and all these other films. So when he told me the story about The Hunger and wanting to do Man on Fire next and the whole 20-year process it took to get to that, I aside from Top Gun and the other films, you know, just from our experience on Crimson Tide was enough for me. But it also, because of The Hunger, I saw another side and a sensitivity and artistry that convinced me.
So you know this thing is here, this relationship to family. It causes you to say he's the guy for the movie.
But then I had to change a little bit.
So is your
the
job
character.
over now that you've cast him?
No, I had to change a little bit, you know, keeping Denzel in mind. I had to readjust the character in my mind and then sit with Brian Helgeland. And Brian was he's the writer.
Of course,
Brian
he also wrote Mystic River and other things.
And Brian's a huge fan of Denzel's, and so he did adjustments, you know, to
So
to
he
that
made the
character.
script thinking of Denzel, and that
Correct.
made it a little bit of a different script.
Yes,
Having nothing to do with race, just to do with the nature of the person.
exactly.
Here is where we go into the second part of this. We're now talking about revenge and vengeance, right? In which was Creasy seeks revenge on a corrupt police officer who profited from the kidnapping of the little girl, Pita.
This was the process of interrogation. Interrogation to get to the next guy, to work his way through the food chain. So what he did, he went to the first guy who was all over the first kidnapping, was the guy in the car, and he gets the information through interrogation, you know, to the next guy, to the next guy, to this guy. So this
I
is
like how you pointed fingers.
pointing the fingers on the first guy, yeah. And so whatever it took to actually get the information to work through the food chain, he did it. And this is what, there was a real guy called John Creasy back in Italy in the 70s. He was a real character. And then it was much simpler because we knew that he just wanted to get any of the guys who were responsible for the death of this child back in Italy. And we knew in the end he was going to get to the Godfather, but they got to him before he got the Godfather. In Mexico it's different because the groups are divided up, the kidnapped groups are divided up into cells. They're very organized. So
Like terrorists.
they're like terrorist cells. So there's the bosses, and they have cell phones. And the guys, and they call the guys. They call the guardians. They call the guys that actually do the kidnapping. But those guys have no means of communicating to the bosses. So it's a very tough piece of investigation that he has to do in order to find the bad guy. And the bad guy was role modeled through my research on a real kidnapper.
Who?
Aras Mendes, who's the biggest kidnapper in the history of Latin America, I think.
You like preparing for a movie as much as making the movie?
I like all parts of the process. There's nothing more frightening than actually making a movie, and there's nothing more satisfying. The days you're on the set.
When it go like the improvisation between the Dakota and Denzel.
Yeah.
What do you like best about this whole process? What is it that you live for more than anything else?
I like the research and the preparation, you know, and and finding that character, and you don't always find it, especially not in the first few days necessarily. You're still working it out, but it's an interesting journey, and to be able to visit these different worlds, to suddenly, you know, some of the experts that you found that I worked with, and, you know, tapping their brain. And I mean, days like there was a woman whose daughter had been kidnapped, and she came in and talked to us, and she told the story with her daughter there of how they had cut her ears off, and she was talking about it, and just, I mean, these real stories and real people and real, obviously real emotions, and it's a unique profession. And then suddenly we're going into places where you would never go as a tourist. You know, you see Mexico City like you'd never see it, like no one else would see it. Only in the film business can you.
Or journalism.
Or journalism, right. Yeah. And basically I'm an investigative reporter.
That's the great thing about journalism.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere and see things through an eye and through a vision and through a prism and through access that you don't
I'm an
get
investigative, not reporter, but you know, what's the word? I perform. I'm an investigative interpreter.
Yeah.
I investigate.
Of the character.
Yeah, and then I interpret.
Yeah.
So what was the peg for this guy?
A very simple thing, really. It's a few things, but one was that the more pressure he's under, in my mind, it's like his heart rate goes down.
Yeah.
His heart rate goes down.
Now, let me tell you something about you, which he said. I don't know if you ever heard him say this. He said that most actors, when they get ready to perform, you can feel the adrenaline, you can feel the heartbeat getting fast, you can feel it. With you, it is exactly the opposite. It's almost like the closer they get to action and saying action, if that's what you do, you feel that it's cooler. He's cooling down, don't you? Didn't you say that?
I do, and I did. That's on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The inside's different.
Do you think he's right about this?
There are a lot of, the number 40 is real important in the Bible, you know. The flood was 40 days, and Jesus prayed, he did something for 40 days. 40 comes up a lot. Years ago, I was with I was going through this Eastern philosophy kind of trip, and I studied with this yogi guy who talked about 40 breaths. Yeah. And a few years back, and probably started all the time with training day, I always try to do 40 breaths. Sometimes you see me bending over and I just breathe 40 times. And I did it try to do it with every picture now. I try to do it before every take. Just take breaths and
Show me how you do it.
No, I'm not gonna sit here and breathe 40 times. It's private.
Cool.
No, I just did.
What
I just did times 10.
I was thinking about you doing it. Maybe it would help me when I do
Well,
this.
I try to think about the air going straight down and low. Basically, what it does is it just
Calms you down.
Cools you
It
off.
cools you right down.
And it gives you the...
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're coming into a
I
scene
know.
with whatever you need, but when I need to be relaxed, I like doing that, and it just sometimes I can get a little dizzy, a little buzz, you know. I'm like, oh, let's go while I'm buzzing.
Okay, so let's take the last scene we just saw. I don't have another scene. You're walking off after the explosion, and there's the one shot. There's not edited shot there. What are you thinking? Anything?
I'm thinking we can only get this in one, or we better get this in one.
Otherwise, it's a very expensive shoot.
I'm also thinking you can't show any fear. I'm breathing. Not the 40 breath, but I'm breathing. And I'm also thinking, I have no idea how close the heat is to me. I'm waiting for something to go by. You know, if anything comes up behind me, I'm taking off. Because I'm walking away from it. And the cameras are like where you are in the distance, in the long lens, and they're on me. So I'm having to walk and be relaxed. I'm reading people to see if anybody takes off running, either away from me or toward me.
They're running away from you.
Yeah, I'm taking off.
You're out of there. Now, are you protecting this man who you paid $24.5 million to get on this movie?
Sort of.
24 and a half, you know.
But you know, just to,
23.9.
23.9.
but just to comment, every morning we'd go on the trail, we sit and do our homework for the day. I'd say, talking through my storyboards and smoke a cigar, and I'm sitting with Denzel. Smoke a cigar, have a cup of coffee, just talking to Denzel. And then I go out, I begin my work preparation, then Denzel steps out of the trail, he becomes a character. That's with 2 movies. So there's once that door opens, and the rest of the day he's John Creasy.
Even in the breaks.
Even in the breaks. And even with Dakota, I remember the first day, he was sitting with Dakota in the car, and Denzel was going through his lines something, and she was sitting next to him, and both of them were sitting looking out, prepping the shot. And I said to Dakota, listen, Denzel, don't take it personally. She just don't know. I know. I work with Sean.
Oh, because I'm in my head.
Yeah.
It's like, I know. I work with Sean.
Don't worry, I work with Sean.
Yeah.
And then after that, he'd be sitting in the front and she'd lie in the back reading the comic like this, and he'd be working his character.
Yeah, I'm working.
great.
She's got it already.
Yeah,
right?
no, she's got
I'm
it
just an
right.
extra in a Dakota Fanning movie. Says, boy, it really looked like you were working hard, but she was brilliant the way she was. It's acting. What it reminded me of, it is child's play. It really is child's play. It is imagination and play.
Yeah.
It is.
Good way to spend your life.
Great.
Not a bad way.
Not a bad way. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Tony, good to have
Thank
you. Man on Fire is a movie. I assume it opens this weekend. I'll read it. It opens on Friday, April 23rd. Man on Fire. Denzel Washington, Dakota Fanning, Marc Anthony, Chris Walken. Who am I missing here?
Giancarlo Giannini.
Giancarlo Giannini?
Giancarlo Giannini.
Giancarlo Giannini.
Rhoda Mitchell.
Rhoda Mitchell.
Yeah.
Who else?
A
lot of.
we got some great Mexican
We got a huge cast here.
We got a
don't we?
great
Flash
cast.
the dog.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time.